So I just looked over the indictment itself. I'm looking at the early reporting, and to understand any of these latest developments, we actually have to rewind and get a little background as to what has happened up until this point. Over the last several years, there has been an investigation into the president's son. And just like any investigation, we don't always know every part of what's going on behind the scenes. But we do know that there was a plea deal made between the federal government, these are federal investigators, and Hunter Biden, or so we thought. There were some misdemeanor tax charges for not paying his taxes. And then there was this other charge, a felony gun charge that was related to a firearm purchase. And to understand any part of the severity of these charges, you actually have to know a little bit about buying a gun. These are things I didn't know about. And so let me pause and tell you a little bit about that. When you purchase a gun in America, you have to fill out a series of forms. This is when you go into a gun store and you want to purchase a gun. So you're filling out a lot of forms, they're getting a lot of information from you, and it's not just like filling out any form. If you lie on these forms, you can be found guilty of a felony. It's a felony offense to lie. And one of the questions on the forms is, are you a drug user? And you have to say yes or no, because you're not able to buy a gun if you are an active drug user. That would disqualify you from the purchase. Well, Hunter Biden lied, and he said that he was not a drug user when it is very well documented that he was a drug user. So this is a very serious offense. This isn't just like, oh, you lied in the form, we're going to take your gun and we're going to give you, community service. This is a felony. And when you lie in this particular way, you can face up to 10 years in prison. So these are the allegations in this indictment that we're just seeing for the first time. There are 3 counts that Hunter Biden is facing for lying, for making a statement that was false and fictitious. I'm reading off of it right here. The potential punishment for these counts is upwards of 25 years in prison. These are very serious counts. These are very serious charges for anyone to be facing. And it was the seriousness of this particular offense that raised some eyebrows when we learned a couple months ago that there was a plea deal that had been worked out between the federal government and the president's son. Now, if you're a Scoop insider, which I would love for you to join us and contribute to the success of Smarter News and the growth of Smarter News, you'll know that I spent quite a bit of time on this, on the plea deal that we learned about regarding Hunter Biden and the federal government. And there were a couple of things about the announcement of this plea deal that caught my attention. One of them was that the investigation into the president's son was ongoing. So basically, investigators got into the point where they wanted to bring these charges or bring this plea deal before a judge, but they weren't exactly done with it. Well, that became really important because in court, when both sides had to show up and say, hey, we got a plea deal, it seemed that both sides were not exactly clear about what the plea deal was stipulating. The general reporting suggested that Hunter Biden would plead guilty to these misdemeanor tax charges and that there was going to be a special handling of this particular gun charge. And because of the serious nature of this charge, that it was a felony charge, it raised some eyebrows, not only from critics of the president and saying, the president's son would get favor within the court system, but a lot of legal experts, because it's a felony. It's a serious charge. Again, no matter where you are or where you're from, lying on this particular form is against the law. And there wasn't really a dispute about whether or not Hunter Biden did it. Again, this is allegations in the indictment, but there wasn't really any dispute as to that. Well, Hunter's lawyers argued that the deal somehow would make him immune to any future charges on anything else. And now there's no cameras in the courtroom, so I'm doing a little theatrical interpretation here. But the government lawyers were like, no, that's not the plea deal. that we're just kind of getting this package together. But remember, the investigation is ongoing so that he can never be charged with anything else. Like, no. That's what I'm imagining. I think it probably was a little bit more serious than that, but it was a shock to the news media and everybody else because we thought this was like tied up and both sides were just going to tell the judge what's up. Instead, the judge was like, y'all don't know what's going on. Figure this out over the next 30 days. And now here we are weeks later and we have actual charges on this particular felony issue. So there's a real question about what happens from here. Is there a potential plea deal that could happen? Could Hunter Biden say, yeah, I'm guilty of that and I'd like to plea? Would that even be available after what happened with the attorneys? Could we see this case go to court? And would that involve then the other charges that we knew were coming and any other potential charges that this investigation has somehow uncovered in recent weeks and months? What would be the timeline on that? So we don't know. The president is actually going to be speaking about the economy right now around this time period that I'm doing this recording. And so we'll see if the president would have anything to say on something like this, or if he gets shouted a question about something. But at this point, we actually don't know what's next. Big picture, you have the leading candidate for president on the Republican side, former President Trump, obviously facing a series of charges in a series of different cases. And the question about courts and timelines and everything is certainly something to consider as we're covering his race for the White House. Now we have a member of the current president's family, the current Democratic candidate for president, also facing charges. They're different, but you just have both of these frontrunners facing a lot of questions when it comes to breaking the law. We haven't seen anything like this. So we'll keep you posted as we get developments. If we hear anything, of course, we'll pass them along. And I'm curious, do you have any questions about this particular case? How can we help?